well-equipped teams that are going to qualify well on a hooked-up racetrack with the best equipment, best crews, and best drivers in the world. They're going to be up front all night, and there's no way to get them off that front without driving around them, and it's hard to do that for a lot of these guys.
You're right, it is, But that's just the nature of the beast with what we do. I can sit here, and I'm a driver. We all know that. But one of the most expensive things that every person out here contends with, and the most intricate thing we deal with, is the engines in these cars. And there isn't an engine builder that doesn't have the best of the best. Everybody's got good stuff. It's pay to play. And I've always said, well, maybe it's time we try to figure out a way where, it's not so engine related, and it's not so much, we try to somewhat control the engine costs. And late model racing used to be the same way. When it was alcohol. Now there's hardly any alcohol late model motors left in this country. It's all gas. And when they went to gas, it took away all the high compression motors. It took away, all this stuff. Yeah, they had to figure out how to cool them a little bit, but look at what late model racing is today. It's more practical from a dollars and cents wise than sprint cars.
Right.
And I think a lot of it has to do with their engine costs racing on gas. I'm not sitting here saying, yeah, we need to go switch to gas, but I'm saying we need to take a look at why they did it, how they did it, and they made it work.
Well, and the durability as well of the motors. It's not
and
as...
the durability. And every time I've brought up gas to someone, they're sit and tell me about the flash point of this and that, and it burns hotter. And the goal is to not be on fire, no question about it. But I think I'd feel a lot better if I was rolling around the racetrack and got in a bad crash with 15 gallons of gas in a tank behind me versus 33, because we all know what happens when you flip with 33 gallons in the tank. It comes off the car. It's not going to stay on the car. It's just the nature of the beast. It's not going to stay on. And that'll be the next thing that someone comes up with is, well, we need to tether the tanks to the cars. No, we don't. We don't need to. It needs to break away. That's a safety thing to get it away. Does it need to be in the stands? No, it doesn't need to be in the stands. But that's when you rely on your fence, your fencing and the quality of your stuff at your racetrack to keep that from happening. So, but we could talk on that all day long.
Well, I didn't know how much you could talk about it. It was a thing I wanted to speak about was that, you talked about cost, the LS motor that you were involved in. What I understand the premise behind it, but why did it just go away? Like the development, the idea on that. Is there the conspiracy theory was an engine builder cartel?
Yeah, this is going to take a little time, but we got plenty of time. So
okay, we got plenty of time.
My father kind of looked at this when the engine expenses started to skyrocket and go through the roof. When we hit $50,000 for an engine, we thought, "Oh my Lord, what's next?" And you know what? It's far beyond that. It's 75, 77, almost 80. Some people got more than that in their engines. And he looked at it as, you know what? This is weekly racers, local racers, can't afford to run 410s weekly at that and sustain to be able to keep going at that level. So he wanted to have an alternative, and his alternative was working with a guy that was a retired GM employee. Dick Amaker was his name, and he was the one that was very instrumental with some of the LS stuff. So Ron Shaver, my father, and Dick Amaker decided to take this LS7 engine, and my father funded the whole project, and he had roughly $100,000 in it from start to finish. And basically they took a stock LS engine, they put a pan on it, they put the front drive on it, and they put a throttle body on it where it didn't have injectors, and it ran on alcohol. So here we have a 7-liter, which is about 430 cubic inch engine that would run roughly 8,000 RPM. It had more torque than a 410, but it had less horsepower. And I ran it. I won an all-star show with it. I ran it at one of the challenge races at Knoxville that year from the tail because I wasn't supposed to be in the race, just for, an experiment type thing to show what it would do. And it really, it had it had a really good platform for what it was, because you could, if Joe Blow wanted to go out and buy this engine, he could probably spend $12,000 and have all the parts if you wanted to do it yourself. Naturally, you had to have it sealed and checked, which is fine. The one thing that my father went real wrong on is he didn't want to have people cheating with it. He wanted it to stay as it was intended. So he had a very stern penalty for cheating on this. And any builder that had to build it had to pay a $5,000 bond, and the numbers were just a little bit outside the realm of reality for weekly racing, or anyone, period, actually. And I think that's probably why it never really got any legs and went anywhere. But the other reason is we had an affiliation with General Motors at the time at Tony Stewart Racing, and they thought everybody acted like I was going to make money off it. I had nothing to do with it. I wasn't selling engines. I wasn't building engines. My father spent $100,000 on that program just to get it where it was at today. And I know exactly where that motor's at today. And there was a few built, but it's funny, Chaz, that you should even bring that up, because I have gotten phone calls from 360 guys across this country. I get at least 2 a year, and I have the last couple years. Whatever happened to that? Whatever happened to that? And these very guys that called were the same guys that were dead against it when it first came out. We were going to wreck racing. We were splitting it. We were going to create another class. Hell, you know how many classes there are now. They got 525s, and they got everything but the LS7. But the LS7 literally had the ability to race at not World of Outlaw. It wasn't going to win a World of Outlaw race probably, but let's take the guys at River City Speedway, for instance. More than half them guys up there, it would be better than what they had, but they were spending $35,000 to $50,000 buying used motors from guys that were wore out, that were breaking. So that's really what it was an alternative, and it really never. It just never really went anywhere. And what's really funny about it is when I went to Australia and I told someone about it, instantly the guy wanted it, thought it was the greatest thing ever, but it never took off there either. So it is what it is. It was a fun program to be a part of. I got to run it several times, and I can tell you it accelerated better than any 410 I ever had. And I think one of the true reasons was because it didn't have a magneto. It had a battery ignition, and it had a coil pack on every cylinder. So instead of when a magneto is dependent on RPM to work, this has more voltage at 2,000, 3,000 RPM, or even 5,000 than a magneto does.
Because it's
magneto
charged.
Because it's charged the whole way through rather than waiting for the RPM to build up. So it had no lag in it. It was incredible that way. But was it going to sit there and run 9,000 RPM like we do on these motors now? No. There's no way it was ever going to run 9,000 RPM. And it wasn't going to do that sort of thing. And it was my job to do what I could to break it. And I ran it 24 nights, I think, total. Me and my buddy Land, we used to truck around and just go places and race and run off the racetrack and go to the back and, just try to see what it would do. And, man, it never let me down. But I finally did break it, and it was just out of pure stupidity. We sat one night and didn't keep it warm, and I went out on the racetrack, and it was ultra cold, and I just spun a ring in it because I was just stupid. So Ron Shaver fixed it and sent it back, and that motor is still in Australia as we speak, and they still use it.
Well, I just think I heard a lot of conspiracy theory around that thing. It wasn't just a motor that made a kill or created a class, but if you find a way to make a motor that is just as sufficient as a Don Odd or any of these high price motors, that's a big threat to a very lucrative industry.
Yeah, that's true. It's not. There's a lot of people that make their living off building these, building cylinder heads, building blocks, and when you take something like that, it's the same cylinder head on both sides. So the spark plugs are pointing forward on one side, back on the other, because it's the same head. So, there's a lot to it that had, a positive. But you know, I don't have a problem with crate motor racing or anything like that. We have a lot of it up here. The problem that it always turns into is there's always someone that cheats it and finds a way around something. So providing all these things stay into the realm of what they're supposed to, then it's fine and the costs stay down. But when someone goes outside that box and finds a way around this and around that, that's when it starts to get expensive. It doesn't matter if it's crate motors, 305s, and that's really why you don't see any. There's other than 410 cubic inches in sprint cars, we really don't have any rules. But I haven't ever seen them pull the head off a motor. I haven't seen them pull the pan off. So how many motors are out there that are outside those realms? We don't know, you know, and that's not my job to do anyway. So, but it seems like sometimes the more rules you have, the more people stand to get around.
This is how we ride. This is how we do.